In the heart of Zaria, in a quiet neighborhood shaded by neem trees and hibiscus shrubs, stood an old, decaying house, separated from our compound by a narrow footpath. No one dared to speak of the house openly, though everyone whispered about the strange sounds that came from it during moonlit nights. As a child, I'd often overhear grown-ups exchanging stories about the house, calling it Gidan Dodo, the haunted house. Some claimed that spirits had driven away the last family to live there, while others said an old woman, a solitary figure with supernatural powers, used to own the place before she vanished mysteriously. My mother always forbade us from going near the place, claiming that anyone who ventured close would fall under a curse. But one dry Harmattan morning, I found myself unable to resist the urge. The house had become an obsession, an unshakable curiosity that gnawed at me every time I saw its crooked walls and faded blue paint. So, I waited for a Friday when the town's mosque would be packed for Jumu'ah prayers, and the streets would be empty. My family would be busy preparing for the return of my father and brothers from the mosque, and I would have a window of time to explore. I slipped out, and with heart pounding, I crept toward the house. As I approached, the silence grew thicker, weighing down on me. The once vibrant house had aged poorly. Its walls were cracked, and the tall, wiry grass had claimed the small yard. The windows, shattered in places, seemed like dark, watchful eyes. Gently, I pushed open the creaky gate, my pulse quickening. Inside, the yard was cluttered with broken pottery and crumbling bricks. A few steps further, and I stood at the doorway, a breath away from entering the unknown. With a gulp, I stepped in. The air inside was stale, thick with dust and the lingering scent of earth. Sunlight filtered in through the shattered windows, casting eerie shadows across the floor. As my eyes adjusted, I began to make out the details of the dimly lit room. Old, wooden furniture lay scattered, a forgotten bed frame in the corner, a rusted lantern on the floor. Then I noticed something peculiar, a small, leather-bound book resting on a rickety table. I approached it, and with trembling fingers, opened the dusty cover. Inside, I saw strange symbols and illustrations I couldn't understand, but the script was unmistakably Hausa. It was a diary. The entries were written in an elegant hand, describing events that happened many decades ago. It seemed to belong to a woman named Lami, who once lived in the house. The entries were strange, detailing her interactions with what she called aljanun, or spirits. She described how they would visit her each night, bringing her gifts in exchange for stories. She claimed the spirits were harmless but lonely, craving the company of a human voice. One entry, however, stood out. It was dated the night before her last recorded words. "I fear tonight's story will be my last. I feel them drawing closer, more restless than before. They speak of a place beyond, and they want me to join them. If I do not write again, know that I have followed them willingly or unwillingly." A chill crawled up my spine. Just as I was about to close the book, I heard a faint shuffling sound from deeper within the house. My heart leapt, and I stood frozen, clutching the diary. It could have been a rat, I told myself, but the sounds grew louder, deliberate, like footsteps. I turned towards the direction of the noise, staring into the darkness of a hallway leading to the other rooms. Driven by both fear and an inexplicable urge to see more, I stepped forward. As I did, I felt the temperature drop, a biting cold that seemed to radiate from the walls. I found myself in what appeared to be Lami's bedroom. The bed was still there, though the sheets were tattered and yellowed with age. On the wall, I saw markings, more strange symbols like those in the diary. But something else caught my eye, a small metal box hidden beneath the bed, half buried in dust. Kneeling, I pulled it out and tried to open it. The lock was rusted, but with a bit of force, it snapped open, revealing an assortment of trinkets, old coins, bits of jewelry, and, most notably, a tiny carved wooden figure of a woman. Just as I lifted the figure, the air grew thick, and a cold breeze swept through the room, though the windows were shut. I heard a soft whisper, a voice, faint but unmistakable. "Help me." I spun around, heart hammering. No one was there. The voice came again, clearer now, resonating from the walls. "Please, set me free." Frightened yet entranced, I clutched the wooden figure tighter, realizing with a shiver that it bore a striking resemblance to the carvings in the diary. The voice whispered again, filling the room, weaving a plea that sounded ancient and sorrowful. "Lami?" I asked, the name escaping my lips in a barely audible whisper. The room seemed to pulse, a soft glow emanating from the markings on the wall, illuminating the symbols. Yes, the voice answered, and in that instant, I knew it was her. It was said in Hausa folklore that spirits could be trapped in objects through powerful incantations. Somehow, Lami had been bound to this house, this place, perhaps by the very spirits she had once entertained. Desperate to escape, I ran toward the door. But as I reached the hallway, I stopped, realizing that if I left, Lami's spirit might never find peace. I returned to the room, clutching the wooden figure and opening the diary one last time. Near the end, in faded ink, I found a line written in Hausa. To release what is bound, return it to the earth under the night's gaze. Grasping the figure, I hurried outside, my mind racing as the sun began to set. I went to the neem tree beside the house, where I dug a small hole in the soil. I placed the figure inside and covered it, whispering a silent prayer. As the last rays of sunlight disappeared, I felt a gentle warmth pass over me, and in that moment the house seemed to sigh, as if it had been holding its breath for decades. I returned home that night, my curiosity satisfied, and my heart lighter. The whispers ceased, and the house fell into a peaceful silence, the kind that comes only after a long-forgotten story has finally been put to rest.